Hey there, we've gone live. Dakota Grappler live here on a Monday night, a little bit different. We usually do Sundays and Wednesdays, but got a little busy over the weekend, and so thought we'd better update some people on how things are going on a Monday night. Sure glad that we could have Bill, of course, joining me again tonight. We are going to have some fun talking some wrestling. Hopefully we'll keep it, half hour to an hour, but there's so much to talk about, so we'll see what happens. Bill, right away, how's it going over there?
It's going pretty good. Pretty nice weather. We've had some strange weather here in the central part of the state with some rain on Saturday and Sunday, but it's nice to have it a little bit warmer, so I'm happy about that. And it's kind of that time of the season where things really start heating up at all levels of wrestling. So
definitely.
I like watching it all the time, and then this time of the year it just kind of gets heated up. You start getting through the store hog, and then on the Class B side, and then we got East West and regional duels and regionals, and that's a state tournament. So it all happens pretty fast. And I kind of think the Class A side, the same stuff is happening.
No, I'm excited. I was looking through all the results on Sunday and going, it's getting crazy, and it's basically you're going to start cutting wood pretty quick, and going to have to basically start determining some stuff on some teams too, of where people are going to go. I've seen some people moving up and down a couple places. I know that Century is actually going to have a couple of wrestlers maybe do some different things, but I got to keep that secret for at least until Thursday. But we got Bismarck High this Thursday, and not like we have enough guns at Century to take them out, but you never know what they can do, and just see what can happen.
No, Century's never been able to give up. They're gonna try to win that duel and every match they can in it. So.
Well, I've been around the coaching staff for quite a while, and I enjoy them a lot. They try a lot of new things. They're doing some different stuff this year that I've seen in the past with Nate Human taking control a lot of the technique, and I'm really impressed. I give him another shout out. I'll have him on again because he's another one of our college guys. I know that he'd love to get on and talk the talk, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's obviously, we've known that for a long time, and that he's just a wrestling nut, so it's going to be, I'm sure he's going to be very busy with what he's doing, but he has every, all of the interest in following the college stuff, and not just the class, not just the Division II, but also the Division I. So he's pretty knowledgeable, but he follows it like it's pretty easy to do these days.
Well, I tell you what, we got a special guest coming up Wednesday night that I'm excited about. We got Nick Storhog joining us. Known Nick for a long time, and just a great man. I mean, I sit down and talk with him every time I go through, and I can meet him in Lisbon, and we always have great stories to tell each other. And he's a big Viking fan like me. So
good. I'm excited. I'm excited to have him on. I think that's.
He's a guy that's not into self-promotion, but anything to promote the sport of wrestling, he will do. And so he actually kind of told me that, it's not about him. And I said, no, of course it's not, but it's the sport of wrestling. And he's a part of it. Right. And that history aspect that you just don't get back. And I think he's going to have a great story for us tomorrow night, somewhere along the way. Some stuff that I'll guarantee a lot of people, if they haven't heard before, or if they have, they'll be love to hear it. And we're going to hear some of that names from that area that I don't know all Lisbon's history of wrestling, and I'll guarantee he's probably one of the top ones to know it. So,
right, yeah, absolutely, and I don't either. There was at that time that Nick was coaching. That was kind of the years that I was obviously only paying attention to Class A, because it was hard enough to see what happened around the state. In one division, much less trying to follow both. Back then we're at such a great time, and it kind of started, really when you started the Grappler on so many years ago. That you're able to, to get a lot of the information out there. So it's nice to see it.
Oh yeah, I like I said, I'm excited. And I tell you what, the Store Hog is tournament named after him this last weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that. Where I tell you what, South Border's not going away. Lisbon's been tough all year, but I tell you what, South Border's going to give them a battle all the way till the end, and that might be the 1-2 teams all the way this year. I don't know.
Well, we can talk about a lot of weight classes at the Storhog, but that 160-pound final match, I was kind of trying to do the numbers, and it came really close to that going one way or the other. But I think if Hare wins that match, I think Lisbon still wins by 1.5. But it was really close, and that probably shows you kind of the reason why Hare went down. South Border's always going to be chasing team trophies, and they've put themselves into a pretty good spot, I think, here. I still think when you get the entire state in one field, and you don't have a Bismarck St. Mary's or a couple of really good Minnesota teams stuck in there, I kind of think they're going to come to the top, but it's going to be very interesting in the top two. And then if you looked at the results at the Storhog, third through fifth place, I think it was 3 or 4 points that kind of separated it. And that's a couple a Minnesota team and a couple Class A teams. But I
got a kick out of one weight class, and you never guess which one it is.
No, which one?
Heavyweight.
Oh, heavyweight, yeah.
Lisbon had 4 guys placed in the top 4.
Wow.
No, so they got some big boys in the room.
Yeah.
And, not only we talk about steel sharpens steel. If you got 4 big guys in the room, where's the room for everybody else to wrestle?
Right. Yeah. They got to run a different separate practice.
Yeah. But that's I got a kick out of that. Lisbon, JV down there. I'm going, okay. Well, you saw a lot of red on the mat out there.
But that that tells you something about the quality of that program and where they're at. There's a lot of teams in the state can't get a heavyweight. I mean, one.
Oh, so true.
One. They've got 4 that are all battling, and obviously, I haven't looked at what grades they're in, but I'm guessing they're all coming up. And if you can keep all those guys in there, that program, and that's a tough weight, right? I mean, that's a tough weight to fill. That just gives you some, and that I think that probably lends well to the football program and the football coaches trying to push those guys towards doing this sport that's going to help them in football in the off season. So
no, definitely,
that's awesome.
And it's hard to keep people out. Class A's got a little advantage, be able to get some extras into the region and possibly the state. Class B, I think they should push to do it. I'd hate it. The big battle is, those little towns only probably qualify a couple. And if you put some of these bigger teams have chances, they'll take those spots away. And I see that, but, I look at the bigger picture where guess what? You got to keep everybody possible in the room and there's more talent out there. But I see it both ways. One way I see it is we do want to keep everybody that's already on the teams in the room, but we also got to keep all the teams out there. Yeah.
So if you got a team that's, and I'm not going to pick a team, but you've got one that qualifies one kid or has qualified 4 kids over the last 6 years. That kid comes to the state tournament, they got a reason to come back, and so I love the opportunity to have additional wrestlers in there. I really do. So.
Yeah, and so I know we've looked at the records in Class A. Sometimes you'll catch a guy with a 3-17 record make it to state, and Class B complains about that when you got guys that are sitting at 30-14 sitting at home, or something.
Yep, so, because of the region they're in. Yep, absolutely, it happens.
And so, but I did notice some guys. Now Carrington's, there's a couple guys with almost 50 matches, and I know we're heading into East-West, and we're getting toward that time of year. But I'm thinking, gosh, we got duels. We got all. They're going to have 60 matches going into state. Yeah. So
that happened, a few years ago here when they kind of changed the way that those limits are counted, and a lot of those guys that end up with that many matches, they're guys that end up in the wrestlebacks at the Rumble or end up in the wrestlebacks at the Rotary, and they add up pretty fast. But they do, that's a lot of matches. And I think it's too many. I mean, as a fan, and if I'm one of the guys that likes watching a particular wrestler and I want to watch him wrestle all the time, it's great. But I don't think we need to wrestle 60 times a year.
Right. I think they need mat time, but there's an excess to there a little bit.
Yeah. No, I really do. I think that I think that's something that could be looked at. I think we're probably not going to end up putting that back in the bottom.
I've never thought about but would coaches come down with an optimal amount of matches? Would it be? I know they had a maximum a few years ago, but is a good amount of matches 30? Is a good amount. 40, and it all depends on the wrestler. But I know that kids wear down too.
Oh, absolutely.
Long season, and that's maybe where some of the attrition comes for wrestling in the off season too. They get burnt from wrestling 50 in the regular season. You're asking them to do some freestyle and Greco, and they need a break. And so, I mean, they're piling on. Little kids wrestling tournaments are going right now, and I see results of Matt Pack going down to Wyoming last week and doing very successful. I see in Fargo there'll be a little kids wrestling tournament this next weekend. There's a lot of things happening out there, and so. It gets interesting. We make this season so short, but yet so long in certain ways. It's hard to explain, but it's such a sensitive thing with kids, and you just got to feel it out, I guess, for your own guys. But
right, yeah, I see. For us as fans, we like watching these kids wrestle every weekend. But there is a limit, or there should be a limit, and. I think you hit on a big one. I think that if we had these kids wrestling, 40 matches, whatever the number is, 20 less than they're going to get. It would be a lot easier, I think, to get them to wrestle come spring and summer.
Right.
I think there's a lot of these kids that get to the end of the season and it's been a grind, and their bodies are beat up, and their bodies get beat up after 40 matches. So, I don't know what the answer is. I like mat time. I think kids like mat time. But the next problem is, what do you leave out?
Right.
Do we not go, I can kind of look at Carrington's schedule as an example, because there's one that has a lot of matches. Well, we want to go to the Rumble. We want to go to the Rotary. Well, you're going to get a lot of matches there, especially if you end up in the Wrestlebacks. So you want to do that. So now, do we not go to Lisbon? Or, you're going to, East-West is so important. And so the tournaments all need people, and we're not in a position where we say, okay, well, and I don't think we get enough duels. So that's another issue.
Did you catch Randy's comment last week where he had talked about, some of his kids do need a break, and he decides, guess what? It's most important to wrestle some last weekend and then some this weekend and so forth. And he does a good job of managing that, I think, because it's not just everybody has to wrestle every weekend and so forth. And I think he's taking care of his guys, and he gets a good feeling that, guess what? They need this group is going to wrestle in Killdeer that didn't wrestle up in Rugby the previous week. And so he's got a good feel on that. And I think he runs a really tight, close team. It's a team atmosphere. As much as we want to believe wrestling's an individual sport, there's that extra aspect they got to think about with a team. Will you feel part of something? Because if it's an individual battle, it's not the same as if you're battling with somebody. Common goal.
And I think that's one of those things that when we talk about duels, and I'd like to see our teams have more duels. Then that all comes to, well, we should end up with more dual tournaments, because then everybody gets 5 matches in a weekend. Well, that doesn't help accomplish this, and we can't. We're not going to be able to. If you're Bismarck High or Century or some other places, we could stick in another kid because we're getting close on mat counts. And I remember it wasn't that long ago where we had to hold kids out before East-West. Maybe it was the tournament. It might have been rugby, or it might have been 2 duels, because you couldn't take that chance. You could go to East-West and get stuck in the Wrestlebacks, and all of a sudden you've got too many matches going into regional duels.
Right.
That wasn't that many years ago that I remember that happened. And I don't remember any of those kids complaining that they didn't get enough mat time. So I do think I think a lot of these kids get too many matches. I remember kind of when it started. Well, it would have been about 15 or 16
Right.
or 17.
I would say early 2000s.
That all of a sudden I looked and I was like, holy cow, why not Ryan kids? We're at the halfway through the season and they got 40 matches.
Right.
And I was really surprised, and it's happening now. I see it a lot more, but yeah, it's one of those things I think that the sport could look at.
So
the coaches could look at.
You're from a smaller town. How would you propose to keep wrestlers wrestling in the spring? In the larger town, see, I battle with a couple different things. One is of being too one sport specific, and it becomes a battle because it happens in the bigger town more than it does in a small town. The track team does need, Joe Wrestler to
absolutely, and the baseball team, yeah,
and the baseball team and so forth. So I do believe in multi-sports, but you can also get on the mat during these off seasons. It doesn't matter. You have baseball practice. Let's just go roll around for an hour. Let's throw some headlocks and some, and some arm tosses and try to stay off your back a little bit.
How do you do that?
It's like going to the weight room.
How do you do that and still get in 8-10 hours of, video games a week? I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Impossible. Yeah.
Well, I know it's possible, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna use my kid as an example. A poor example, probably. He did wrestle, obviously a full season. He did run track. He was on the speech team. He did all of that stuff because that he wanted to do all that, and he still wrestled in the spring. He didn't wrestle 10 tournaments in the spring, right. But he would wrestle he did the best he could to wrestle the state freestyle and Greco. He would possibly go he went to the state folk style a number of times. And was he in the best shape he could have been for those events? No, because he didn't practice 5 days a week. But that was okay. He was going to run, and this was, I can from 8th grade on. Let's not talk about junior and senior year. And those things were great for him, I think. And then when it came time to go, get ready to wrestle at junior duels or at Fargo, that was a lot easier because this freestyle wasn't a strange thing, right? It was something he'd done 5 or 6 weeks, and we practiced, and Coach Kerbaugh would spend some time, on the freestyle season, and we'd have those things happen. So I know it's possible, even for the guys that are in the small towns that are doing playing baseball or running track. Now, it's not easy to get them to come out and do something extra. That's the hard part. So I think what we need to do possibly is where you cut down the matches a little bit so they're not just completely wore out from wrestling, and then have some sort of focus on that summer season where they can have something to work towards. It's not that you have to go wrestle 5 or 6 tournaments in the spring, but just wrestle some. Practice some. Go to a tournament, and then possibly go to postseason. Nationals down in Iowa or something like that. Kelly's got a great question. What is it?
Yeah, it says, as coach, scheduling is it says easier with event limits rather than match limits. Also, the kids with lots of matches are middle placers, not studs and bad kids. That's right. It's a great comment. Yes.
It goes back to what I said. It's all those guys that take 3rd place, 4th place, they get a lot of matches. And that's it. So the hard part, and I understand that he's exactly right. Scheduling with events is way easier for that reason. But the problem is we don't, as a coach. So now I got a kid that's got 50, 60 matches. They're not holding them out, right? They're not saying, okay, well, it's East-West weekend, we're going to hold him out because he's got 55 matches. Right. I'm not telling you that if I was in the fight that I would do the same thing. I just think it would be a great thing for the kid. I do think
I think that's a very hard decision.
I do. I do. So that's where it has to be made at the at a bigger level, right? So it's taken. I hate to say it's taken out of the coach's hands, but that's where it comes down to, where all the coaches get together and say, hey, we got to find a way to limit these matches a little bit more. But I do agree 100% with what Kelly said. It's perfectly accurate.
Definitely.
But if you just say Linton, for example, they wrestle to 9th place. So it's really easy to get even if you're not taking 3rd, you can get a bunch of matches. So I watched that happen a lot. I remember one kid in example for, and this would have been, well, I won't even say who it is, but he took 3rd place like all the time, right? I mean, he'd lose and he'd fight his tail off to come back and wrestle back, and sure enough, we got to a weekend. We actually had a weekend Carrington did where they dueled Larimore and Grafton and Mayville all in one weekend. And we had this one kid where we had to hold them out the whole weekend and put somebody else in there, which was possible at the time because we had enough kids. Today, Carrington would have a tough time replacing them, so they're gonna want to put everybody in there every weekend unless they're legitimately hurt.
Mm-hmm. No. Well, let's take a quick gander. Let me think. I just want to mention a couple other things about the Storehog, and then I want to talk about the Kilder tournament just a second. And then we had another tournament. I'm trying to think which one it was. I got to think.
Well, yeah, you had the Class A duels.
Oh yeah, you had the Metro duels.
The Metro duels, yeah.
Yeah. So going through a couple of the weight classes, I remember at 106 that Coy Griebel from Valley City won. Yep. But I noticed that Wallner and Olson, and that Lepp have kind of been all kind of close to one another all year. And so seeing Olson from Central Cass in there, that should actually jump him up a little bit in the rankings, I thought there.
Yep.
And then going to 13, Lura, he must have had a pretty good tournament. We have that Charles Hare in there.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch the final score of Lura in the finals. What was that again? Do you remember?
It was 4-2.
Okay, close match.
It was a close match. Tristan has trouble sometimes getting to his leg attacks, and if you can't generate a takedown, sometimes it gets tough in some of those matches. But he wins a lot of different ways, and that was just one of those matches. He had a pretty tough kid, pretty good defensively. It was actually a pretty exciting match.
Kid from Border West, yeah.
Yeah, Border West kid. Yep, tough kid.
Okay. Overall, I thought Carrington must have wrestled pretty well. They ended up being right in the mix. A few points separating them, but they had a lot of guys place. It's good to see.
Yeah, there was a couple new kids in the lineup. We had 220 pounds. We had what am I saying?
Was it Retzlaff?
No.
He was at 95.
Why am I drawing a blank? I am drawing a blank because Colton Bustness. Colton is a senior.
Okay.
Returning state placer. I begged him for 5 months to get back out and wrestle, as has the entire community. But he's planning on playing college football, and he was didn't want to cut weight. He wanted to get bigger. Kind of all the stuff we hear, and now the time finally came. He's like, "Hey, I just got to get back wrestling. I love it," and so he's had about 1 week's worth, 9 practices or whatever he's had. So the first event out is the Storehog. So he's gonna get bigger. He's gonna how these guys and I actually, when I watched his matches, I didn't see every match. I didn't see a real conditioning issue, but when these guys come right out of the football field, they're not in wrestling shape. Right. And so when you take 4 months in between there, you can imagine that you've got some rust to knock off, and I think Colton will be just fine. We also had another kid that came out, another Lura. We don't never have enough Luras, at 138 pounds, and Jonathan's gonna, he's gonna be okay. He's gonna he's had a few years off the mat, and I'm real excited to see how Jonathan comes along too. So that was good. So yeah, they had a pretty good tournament. Breck and Lura had a really good tournament. Took first.
I noticed Carter Schmidt had lost to Lindgren.
I'll tell you what, that was. I don't know if you watched that match. I have not seen Carter wrestle, right? So I've kind of been excited to watch that match. I watched him at the end of the second period. I said, "Oh my God, this kid is tough. He's really good, and he is really good."
Yep.
And then Lindgren in the third period just kept coming back and kept coming at him and kept coming at him, and all of a sudden, he wins the match. So it was an overtime match. And I thought that the first two periods were completely controlled by Carter, and the third period was controlled by Lindgren, and then he got to take down in overtime. So that is going to be a fun one to watch.
20 is a tough weight class. That Matthew Dursher and stuff. He's coming back. And
Matthew's coming along. He's got some work to do, but I think he'll be all right.
That Caruth he beat is not a bad kid either.
Yes. Yep. No. There's going to the Region 1 individuals tournament would be worth it for watching 120 pounds and 160 pounds for that matter.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. No, I was impressed there, definitely. And then of course 26. That's Reese Barnhart, of course, won that one.
Yep.
Of course, you had mentioned your 132. And he just keeps piling on. Brecken is wrestling good. He's a good sophomore. He's got his 30 wins now already this year. That Schneider keeps impressing me. He's getting better and better. I know he's a senior from South Border, but, over the years, I've watched South Border a lot. And, it just surprises me sometimes. Some kids just come out of the blue and all of a sudden, bam, they just are better and tougher in this. That Grant Schneider just didn't stop, and I know he had a pretty good tournament, taking second there.
Yep. So, Brecken looked good. I'm excited to see if Brecken can finish the season strong, and move up a couple notches at the state tournament on the podium.
Yeah, and then I was on the Grappler. I was in South Dakota. They did an all class ranking, Class A and Class B all together, and I was really impressed with it. And I noticed Greenwood too. He decided to he just beat me to the punch, and he put on the all rankings. And I said the only one I disagreed with him was at 38, but because it's close. I tell you what, I'd love to go through some of that. I think Mitch did an awesome job putting that stuff together, and Mitch is putting some great posts on the Grappler right now on the message board. So if you guys don't have a chance, go over there. It's pretty good. But that Bowden Greeley, just as tough. I tell you what, he's going to be a study. He's young yet. He's just a freshman, has not lost this year.
Yeah.
And he just keeps showing me every time I watch him. He's hard to stop. His shots, he's hard to score on. He's the full package, and he's gotten a lot bigger. He was a smaller wrestler. And so as you increase in size, sometimes, just being young, moving up to 38 is not necessarily, a freshman dominated weight class. You start seeing a lot of juniors, a lot of seniors even in that weight class. And so he's wrestling really well. I'm impressed always.
Yeah. Well, I actually was, having Isaac Falkley make the finals out of St. Mary's. That's a kid I watched wrestle a lot over the years from Harvey.
Yep.
And so, he actually, he gave up a pretty good fight there with Bowden, and I think that Greenlee's really, really tough. I remember when he was a youth wrestler, and I saw him coming up, and you could just he's just one of those that sparkles. When you're watching young kids, and you go, yeah, that one's got it, and he's continued to improve. So
there's potential there. I tell you what, and it was a lot of commitment. I tell you what, he wrestled in the spring. His dad took him places, and not only a love for the sport, but there was a commitment early on that he wanted to face the best competition out there. So he was traveling to Bismarck and to Fargo and to every possible tournament, and it's paying off. He's done the hard work.
Good.
And then I sent Tom an invite just in case he wanted to come on. So and he just texted me and goes, I don't know if you wanted me on, but he's at practice.
Oh, okay.
That's anybody. But he was my guy to get a little bit of input on South Dakota. So if he catches this later, he'll watch it later. But no, I'm gonna have to get a South Dakota guy on. That's so much stuff happening down there too. Let's continue on real quick. I've just got a couple more. Let me think. Styler's back from St. Mary's. He's only got 5 matches in on the year. He's tough at 45. He's the number 1 ranked kid, returning state champion, committed in college already. And I did not get to see him wrestle. I watched quite a few matches, but for some reason I missed his.
I did not see the finals at 145. I actually was I was at state dance, so that was fun.
Okay.
But I did watch a lot of matches, but my phone was starting to go dead, and I didn't want to miss some of the bigger guys. So there was a couple there that I kind of had to hang up for a little bit.
Right. Have you got to see Joachim wrestle this year? I have not got to see him either. I got through probably 32, 38 is where I end up stopping watching the matches, and he hasn't lost this year yet either. So
no, he looks really good. He's real solid defensively. He's got good leg attacks. He's tough on top. He looks really, really good. So,
okay. And then you talked about the Sowers and Hair match at 60.
Yep. And
I tell you what, Tate Hogarth taking 4th and Parker Larson, that is a tough weight class.
It's really tough. And I never went back and watched it. I should have, but Sowers and Hogarth were in the semis. Pretty good. Looked like a pretty good match. That's one that I think, Tate really wants, and I think, he's going to keep battling there. The Parker Larson match, that's a Tate gets a takedown. He's on top, rides him out the first period. Parker picks neutral and puts him feet to back and pins him in the second period. But that's not that happened at the Rotary too. So
right.
But it's really a good weight class. I actually would have loved to have seen. We've seen Sowers and Tate a couple times, so I wanted to see Tate and Hare. We may not. We won't see that, I guess. Well, no, we might see it next weekend.
Yep.
We can see it. Although, yeah. So they should be.
The East-West should be a great tournament.
They should be 2 and 3. So.
Century goes down to Aberdeen this next weekend.
Oh, that's a great tournament too. Yeah.
And so I've got to make my choices here. If my boy does not go down to Aberdeen, I've got a commitment to go down there, but I almost want to stick around and watch the East-West.
Yeah. No, East-West will be really. It's the same as always, right?
Yep.
It's to me, it's the premier Class B tournament. In the state, it's part of it's the timing, part of it's this is where all the lineups are set. You don't see much moving after this. There's not a lot of wrestle offs after East-West. So pretty much these are the lineups and this is where the state seeding starts coming out. So it's a great tournament and really well run.
Oh yeah,
I really love it.
And then 70, your Carrington boy Clifton, he won again.
Yeah, Michael had a good tournament. He was, if I remember right, he was coming close to 40 wins too, pretty quick. He's got 35, right in between 35 and 40. 37. Yeah, he's got 42 matches, and so yeah, that's a boatload. And he's young. He's just a sophomore, so he's growing, and those matches are probably don't hurt him much. He kind of had a half a season off last year, so but he's one who would sure like to have him wrestle in the summer. He would make great strides. But
he's young. He's just a sophomore, so yes. he's doing really well.
Yeah, he is. He's doing great. And he had actually just kind of a well wrestled smart match in the finals. 3-1 win over a pretty tough kid. One real good leg attack. It wasn't the high score and high flying affair, but
sure.
Just kind of a savvy match for a young kid to win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a kid to beat Ranky in the semis over there. So yeah, it was a pretty good win.
Yep. And then just mention the other names. I know that let me see. Ellendale Edgley had a champion, that Caruth
Caruth, yep.
Yep,
he got a pin. I did not watch that in the finals, but that's over Avery Dick, who's a pretty tough kid out of Lisbon. So those will be, when you look, the top 3 are all in that weight class. Or Ellendale, Lisbon and South Border. So, you
So
start.
how about Retzloff? How did he wrestle us last weekend? I know he took
Retzloff took second. He actually wrestled pretty good. He had kind of a tough go in the finals. Pretty big. He got thrown to his back and early, fought off his back for quite a while, and finally gave up the pin. But he wrestled pretty good. Besides that, he scored some points. He's getting bigger and stronger all the time. And he's I've kind of been around Bo a lot of years, and he's got a lot of ability. Sometimes I think he doesn't believe it, and it affects him. But I think he's starting to wrestle with some pretty good confidence after the last 2-3 weeks. So he's going to be one that I think can place on the top half of the podium, at state. So it'd be awesome if a guy like Bo for Carrington's. I mean, if a guy like Bo can make the finals, or that would be huge.
Yep. And then they had another champion. EEK, Ellendale Edgley. Yep, they had that Ellingson.
Yep.
20, and he beat a pretty tough kid. That Wahpeton Crump is right in the mix of being one of the top 220s in Class A's. So
is he okay?
That's a big win. But 220 overall in the state in Class A is probably one of the biggest. What could you say? Toss-ups in the state. If somebody comes around to wrestle that weekend, they could be state champs. That's one of those weight classes that I still think that on the right day, the right guy's going to win it, because that's how it is. It's not like somebody's majorly favored over anybody else.
Right.
That could be who gets pinned, who doesn't get pinned.
Yep. And then that Ethan Lyons from Lisbon took first, and so that kind of wraps that up. Team scores were obviously we talked about it. The South Border and Lisbon were real close. The next 3 or 4 were real close. So it was really a pretty exciting tournament. Good tournament to follow. Again, that was one I watched on track. I was really, really happy that Lisbon, has done that. Something that I really appreciate. I think.
I appreciate it. They sent me a passcode too, so I could watch the whole tournament, even though I've got the gold. But it didn't.
Well, next year that's something we should probably get a Dakota Grappler sponsor on a map, maybe.
Well, I tell you what, they haven't asked me yet, but I probably could do that. That's good idea.
Yeah.
And then Nick, like I said, is going to be on. He can fill us in on what's happening out there. Yep, definitely.
Yep,
okay,
awesome.
Let's talk a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Metro duels just for a second.
Yep.
Great competition out there. Looking at the final results, there were a lot of West teams that went wrestle really well. I mean, Bismarck wasn't touched. That there was a team out of Minnesota that wrestled them pretty competitively, but pretty much dominated. Century didn't have a loss going against the East teams. Faced one Turtle Mountain, 2 a West team, but at one time they had Devil's Lake being, the number 1 team in the East, and they got pounded dual wise against every team from the West. So
they did. Okay.
They faced.
Yeah.
So and Jamestown went undefeated on the weekend for the West also. It's Mandan, I think, did lose 2. I think they went 4-2, but the whole overall, I just was impressed with them being able to have all the duels, line it up, still have it, and then still have JV wrestlers be able to wrestle. Everybody brought their JV wrestlers, and they had, 3 mats full of duels and 1 mat with JV matches. But then as soon as 1 mat would clear, they'd have two mats of JV, and that was at both whatever teams. And they had to rotate half the teams a day. On Friday, half the teams were at West Fargo, and the other half were at Fargo Davies, and they did the same thing the next day and rotated half the teams. And then you had new kids to wrestle too for the JV guys, which was pretty cool. Very, very few had to wrestle the same guy twice.
Good. Was that at Davies?
Yes, half was one day at Davies, 1 day at West Fargo.
Okay. Great.
And they kept it in line. I mean, there was, continuous wrestling. I would say that they've done a very good job of keeping that thing going. Just to get new competition, they don't keep team scores. It's one of those things where people need mat time, and you could have champions at a weight. And I know how kids like to take home a medal, but it was none of that stuff. It was the JV wrestlers came out to get some mat time, and if you went 3-0 or 2-1, when it was all said and done, the wrestlers knew and the coaches knew. And
right.
so Give a shout out to my own kid a little bit. He ended up going 500 on the weekend he weighed 141 pounds and had to wrestle 52 most of the weekend. So I'll take that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And so we got Clay Gerhardt coming back from Century. And so that'll kind of bump a couple guys back up and around, and he'll be back mostly on
Clay Redens.
Yep. Clay. Yep. And did I say Cole?
You said Clay Gerhardt. But,
Gerhardt. Yeah, I'm thinking Class B still. Clay Redens. Probably don't need to say the funny story, but he had a tire fall off his truck coming to school. He's very good at tightening his lug nuts, I hear.
Yeah, that's good practice.
His dad said he put on some spacers on his truck, and they go to leave for the tournament on Friday, and his back wheel of his truck flew off. Could have been very dangerous, but the tire went rolling away, and this is right when they were leaving with the bus. All the wrestlers hopped out to lift up his truck out of the bus, and so if you're listening tonight, everybody's okay. And no, he had to roll his truck into the parking lot. His dad, I had a couple of adult beverages with him, and he had to tell us the story on what exactly happened. It was, and so it was pretty good. Other than that, let's actually, let's get out of this for a little bit. I want to talk some college wrestling before we talk forever, because I'm excited about what's going on out there. Iowa had another big win. It's some of the rankings, anything that you saw. I'll let you fire away of what your biggest thing of, because we haven't got to talk wrestling for almost 2 weeks.
College wrestling, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Let's start with the big dogs in Class A. I mean, in Class A, Division One, and I'll let you fire away where you want to start. What do you see out there? What we can have 2 weeks.
I'm going to start close to home. We had Friday night NDSU beat Oklahoma. Nice duel. That's a duel they lost last year. I think they really wanted to get that one back. We had really looked like a really good showing. Won the matches we should have won, and didn't really lose any that we should have that we were expected to win. So I thought NDSU had a good showing. I was happy to see that. And then South Dakota State, went out and beat Oklahoma on Sunday. So tough weekend for the Sooners, but that's what happens when you come to the Dakotas.
I feel really bad for them.
That's right. Yeah. So that was great. And I was happy to see that. The Big 12 is tough. And so anytime you can get wins in the Big 12, I think it's a real positive. And it's getting better all the time. I think Lou Roselli at Oklahoma is making a better team all the time, and they're going to get tougher every year. So, when we can beat up on them, we really have to. So now you get out of that. You start at the top of the Division I ranks, and you had a great duel on Friday night. Iowa and Ohio State. A lot of really good matches. You had number one ranked at 149 pounds. For Iowa went down.
Oh, Lugo, yep. Pat.
Lugo lost to
that's Sasso.
To Sasso. Really good match. Sasso followed that up by beating Brayton Lee from Minnesota yesterday. So Sasso, when the rankings come up, could be number one. I kind of think he'll be number two. Bulu Ellen from Oklahoma State will probably end up as the number one ranked guy, but they're, pick him. I think at the end, I think Brayton Lee's still going to get Sasso at the end. So I think this is they're 1-1 on the year. I think
usually there's higher scoring. It was pretty low scoring, wasn't it? Like a 2-1 match. That must have been crazy.
The Lugo Sasso match. Yeah. No, it's just a ton of scrambling.
Were they leg diving? Were they?
Yes. Yeah. Sasso's almost impossible to score on. And there was a time that Lugo had him looked like dead to right. Well, probably more than one time where he looked like he had him dead to rights, and he, Sasso came out of it. So it really was a fun match to watch. You had a lot of excitement coming from the
wrestling. I get freaked out when they start diving in between the legs and going back and forth, and one guy's knee looks like it's going to go, and then
those knees are in tough shape when they start doing the leg passes. But Sasso's tough. He's tough in the chest wrap position. He's tough. He's diving for ankles, and he really is hard to score on. And he doesn't take a lot of attacks. of course, the Iowa crowd was after it, looking for stalling, but he really wasn't stalling. It just wasn't, and the same thing happened in Minnesota. He's wrestling guys that were taking a lot of attacks, and he was fighting them off and standing right in the middle of the mat the whole time. Really pretty good match. Sasso is, one of those guys that's going to be in the mix for a national title. So we can start with, some other good ones there. Let's see, at 184 pounds, had a real good match there between
that's the
Assad.
Assad's not wrestling there.
Yeah,
you were the one predicting he's probably going to be the man through the year.
Yeah, and he's looking like that was a pretty good decision. I think he's the best athlete of the bunch. Like I said, I think that Nelson Brands will be, the starter for Iowa at a weight class below that. Yeah, I just don't think he's big. Now he could surely prove me wrong in a year or so, but there was a lot of it was a good duel. Iowa dominated the duel overall, but not each match. There was a lot of good matches there. 125, obviously, Spencer Lee got a first period tech fall. At DeSanto just completely broke the 133 pounder from
it was like a 27-12.
He just, it got to the point, it actually was almost embarrassing. I mean, he couldn't even get up. And DeSanto will do that to a guy. And I kind of said that going in. This one could get ugly. I mean, Decatur's going to be pretty good at some point, but he's struggling. I think there's a lot of weight cut there, and that's not a good combination.
Right. And OSU has got their two number ones.
Yep. Colin Moore. They did, and of course, I think Warner is obviously at 197 is Iowa's starter, and they did not send him out. So that was,
who did they put out there again? That Cash?
Oh, they put Cash Wilkie out there. He was one of the 184 pounders. So Colin Moore kind of put it on him, and that's Colin Moore. I was watching him last night again wrestle. I just don't know, especially at that size. I guess it's kind of like Kyle Snyder, but for a guy that at that size can just about get takedowns at will is hard to believe. I mean, wrestling D1 guys, and every time he shoots, he finishes. His finish rate, I don't know what it is, but it's high. It's probably in the 70 to 80%. And he's
better. He's getting better on top every time I watch him.
He is getting better. He's making a little bit of an effort to ride.
Right.
And so that's pretty interesting.
Who's going to push him in the D1s?
Ben Darmstead. Ben Darmstead from Cornell. That's the one probably. And he's probably one that can wrestle with him on his feet. He's pretty funky on top. He's actually probably as dangerous from bottom. So Ben Darmstead will probably be one. Actually, I should say the West Virginia guy. They've got. I think he might be ranked number 2 right now. Okay. I don't think he doesn't have a loss on the year. Looks pretty good. I'll be interested to see how that. They won't see each other until the national tournament.
I'm gonna have to get back into my rankings to check that one out. But
yeah, he looks really good. He's been, this is guy. He's I think a sophomore.
Okay. I did see an unbelievable stat for Iowa that during the Big Ten so far in all their matches, they've had 5 duels. They're 5-0, of course. They're 44-6. They've only lost 6 matches, and they lost 3 in this duel. So
right, yeah. So that you had, those are the 3, right? You got Lugo, and at 97, Moore, and then
Sasso, yep.
And then at 141,
Luke, yep.
Pletcher's looked really good. He looked really good again last night against Minnesota, and that's been different this year. He just has looked like a different wrestler. I don't know. He's up a weight, but I don't know if that's what it is. It just looks like he's always been real defensive and pretty scrambly. Mm-hmm. But this year he's taking leg attacks, and he's tough on top, and
What grade is Pletcher? Is he?
He's a senior.
He's a senior.
Yeah, he's a senior. So he's gonna make things pretty tough. Next week we're gonna see a Luke Pletcher. Oh no, not next week. Maybe the week after. Nick Lee match. Nick Lee be ranked number 2 out of Penn State.
Yeah,
and of course he's undefeated too. So that'll be the one we're all looking for. And that'll give us. It's so hard, you watch a guy like Luke Pletcher wrestle for 3 years, and you get this opinion of who he is. It's hard to just completely turn that around and say, well, Nick Lee's going to beat him. But that's kind of how I feel. But then every time I watch him, I think, man, he is a completely different person, and I don't know why. What made that change, but he is. Really, really wrestling tough. So
you said Pletcher wrestled McGee then?
He wrestled McKee last night, and he beat him up pretty good.
Oh, really?
McKee got the first takedown, and then I don't know. I think it ended up 11-6 or something like that.
Oh, that's a pretty good beating.
Yeah. No, I think Mitchell got the last takedown. So,
okay.
Yeah, that was not a great Gopher duel. I mean, it was a great duel to watch. It was for a fan, but they lost some matches and they got beat up in a couple of places. Patrick McKee wrestled really good at 25. They're really, really struggling at 33. I just think they wrestled Gleva last night, and he's not probably ready for a D1 room or a D1 duel, and he got absolutely demolished by the guy that DeSanto demolished the night before or 2 nights earlier. So
okay.
That'll
just going to start looking. I've got a second computer about the Bison. Now, I had heard a rumor that they're going to pull the red shirt of a Bismarck wrestler.
Oh, really? For what weight class? 40?
For 33.
33? Oh,
yeah.
no. Cam Sikora's at 33.
Well, he was at 33. They're trying to
get him up?
Trying to go to 30, trying to get him to go down 25.
Oh my gosh. Is he,
who
I guess I wouldn't have thought.
Who do you think that is to wrestle 25? Bismarck wrestler.
Well, I would think it would be
Ripplinger.
Ripplinger, yeah. Yeah.
And so, but I don't know if they can cut him all the way down. I mean, he was they said he was pretty darn skinny at 33. So
I can't imagine. I mean, I want if he certified there, I guess. I don't know, but
so I wanted to check. Yeah, if he get down, he'd be tough as nails. But I know they've been searching for a 25 pounder for a while at SU. So that's why I was just going to try it in the background. Click on their wrestling stuff and see what it says, if it says anything. Because the way it had sounded, I know they had a great duel, against Oklahoma, but didn't want to have the whole video playing in the background of the update of the thing, just results. But no, I had kind of heard a rumor that might be possible.
Huh. Well, that would be interesting. I'd love to see Rip in the lineup. And I actually think 33 he'd be huge at 33, but I don't know. I would be really surprised, and not doesn't mean that he can't do it. So we would see. Well, I don't know how soon they do it, but
they were thinking about doing it. So and it didn't come out to the duel this weekend, but I had talked to several people from Bismarck going, that's, somebody had talked to Rick, in fact, his dad.
Yep.
And they were looking at it, and so see what they could do. And we'll see if he does make it down. It'd be a surprise to me.
So they're at Northern Colorado on Saturday and Utah Valley on Monday next week. So,
we'll have to see what happens there. I know Franek has been wrestling tough again. He beat a pretty tough kid this last weekend.
Yep. No, that's a good win. Absolutely.
Fogarty, of course, he keeps pinning people, and you get.
Well, it was good to see him back in the lineup. He's kind of been out for since before the scuffle, so I was glad to see him back in the lineup. And so I'm hoping that's he just keeps on coming. And I did not watch. I didn't watch the duel that night, but that 74 pounder Anthony Mantanona for Oklahoma is a pinning machine. You know, he goes big. You know, and so I was afraid that might be a tough one for this De La Riva from NDSU, because he's will have a tendency to do that himself. So he obviously got put in a bad spot. But
well, when
that would be interesting.
I look in the background of the NDSU thing, they do have Rippler listed at 33.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens, I guess. that's
something to watch.
Insider note that they're trying to get him down to 25.
I'd love to see it. I don't know. Well, 33 is so tough. And this is obviously Cam's last year, so you know we got to get him on the podium. And I think that not that 25 is not, obviously they're all tough, but
right.
But 25, I can't imagine what kind of monster he would be on top at 25. Yeah. He'd be like Lezak was at 25.
Right.
Just you got and Cam is pretty good on his feet, but so is Lezak. But if he gets a takedown, I mean, he's going to end matches fast, I think. So that'd be awesome.
Well, awesome. Have to see what happens. I'll root for him on that, but I'd gonna see how skinny he would get.
Oh yeah. No,
he's that way. Okay.
Well, he's not a real tall kid. I mean, but he's not a small 33 pounder by any means.
No.
So, it'd be awesome to see. I think we had a good duel. Penn State and Nebraska was a pretty good duel. I thought Penn State dominated that one a little bit more than Iowa did against Nebraska. So just because, like I said, that Nebraska-Iowa duel was real. It was 8-2 match-wise, but every match was close. So Penn State looked pretty good.
I never count Penn State out.
No, we're going to get is the Iowa-Penn State duel this coming weekend, maybe? So
is it 2 weeks or is it this week?
It's one or the other. I don't remember.
Iowa State, not Iowa. Yeah. You got Ohio State in 2 weeks with them.
Oklahoma State. Yeah. So, Penn State. Yeah, Penn State, Ohio State in 2 weeks. I think Iowa, Penn State this week. That'll be a heck of a duel. We'll see how. I think duel wise, I think Iowa would be, favored. Penn State is really bad at 25. So, heavyweight will be a battle. 33 will be a really, really good match. Roman Bravo Young and DeSanto. 41, Nick Lee is going to, he'll beat whoever they put out there.
Right.
49, Lugo, and that's a Lugo win. For Claren for Penn State is solid, but he's kind of a middle of the pack guy. 57, Penn State struggling. They just don't. They've got Brady Berge is the guy that's on the lineup. He's the one that everybody thinks is coming, and he wrestled one match. So at some point he's got to get in the lineup before we can know what he's going to do. So
right.
Then they run into the good guys, right? 65, that'll be a Chenzo Bull match. So that will be really good. 74 will be really good. That's going to be Mark Hall and Michael Kemmer.
Yep.
I think Hall's favored there.
I'd get the duel just for that match.
But Kemmer's really going to be pretty tough. But Hall he's just at another level again this year.
I've only seen him wrestle once this year, and he dominated it, but it wasn't even funny.
Yeah, 84. 84. Oh, that'll be a good match. Sammy Brooks from Penn State and Assad. So that's two freshmen. Two true freshmen. So that'll be good. 97 will be Shakir Rashid, and Jacob Warner. I think that Rashid's kind of getting into, he was down at 84. He's coming back from a knee surgery. He's starting to get pretty good shape. I think he'll probably win that match. And then heavyweight, you'll have Cassiope and Seth Nevels. So it's going to be a great duel. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun duel. I think Iowa is a better duel team. I think Iowa is, the favorite at the national tournament, but Penn State is still in. Yeah, they won't be in it if they don't find a 57 pounder.
Has anybody come close at heavyweight with Cassiope yet this year? He hasn't wrestled Stevenson or nothing nowhere?
No, not yet. No, No, I think Hilger was probably his closest match. If I remember right, that was probably, and that for the Wisconsin kid.
Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yep. But Cassiope won that.
Okay.
He has not wrestled Mason Paris yet. Mason Paris from Michigan will be, I think that'll be a pretty good match. The last time they wrestled, I think, was probably in Fargo finals, and Cassiope killed him. But Mason Paris never wrestled in the summer until that year, so he just didn't. But then this year he won the Junior World Championship, so he's got freestyle figured out now.
Not so bad. Not so bad record.
Yep. Smashed the world.
Well, what's
won the Globe?
Yeah, you got to wrestle different. You got to don't want to go upper body with them and push them a little bit.
So that'll be. Heavyweight's pretty interesting, I think. Cassiope's tough, and then there's a handful of other guys in there besides Gable.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I'm always impressed with a couple weight classes. One, I think it's still wide open as heavyweight. I mean, I can't pick a guy being so dominant to win that, but there's a couple of them as I look. You know, I'm always interested in 33. I'm always interested in 49. You know, there's certain weight classes which you think somebody should just stick out, but yet there's 2-3 wild cards that could change the whole.
I think 49 is wide open. I think that's a Sasso.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Sure. I don't think Lugo ends up in the top 4. That might be but that's another one of those, like I was talking about before. I've watched him for too many years to think that at the this year he's a completely different person. But I think that's going to be where he's going to have a little bit of a struggle. But I do think Brayton Lee. I think there's a handful of those guys. Austin O'Connor out of North Carolina, coming back from an early season injury, is starting to roll.
See if the maturity takes an effect, because that Sasso, he's just a freshman.
He's a freshman.
When I watched that duel, I'm going, you got to be kidding me. He's there's a lot of good freshmen out there.
Yeah, the days are gone where the guys have to take, or it takes them 2 years to 3 years to figure it out. These guys, and this is because of the off-season wrestling, the coaching, the video that they get to watch, the instruction. It's tremendous that the guys they're prime time ready way quicker than they used to be.
God, I tell you what, my freshman year in college, I got a lot of lumps. I did. Yeah, and so I was going, I thought I was ready, but no, it's kind of cool.
I believe it. I do. I will say at heavyweight, I don't think anybody touches Gable. I think it's everybody's going for second. I just
you mentioned that before, and I still shake my head a little bit. I haven't seen him go against Stevenson or any of those big ones, or like you've predicted that all the way through. He's tough, man. He just keeps going, and he can score from any. It seems like he can score at will, but the only question is if he keeps his mind in it. But that's seems like he gets bored at times. But okay,
so that's
let's cut to your D2 people. Let's go.
Yeah, D2 was kind of a tough weekend for the North Dakota boys. They had 2 good teams come to the state. Obviously, St. Cloud came in and they beat up Minot on Friday night. And they beat up
shut them out.
They beat up Mary on Saturday. They're just so deep, and they didn't even they put in a few backups on Saturday, and they still did pretty good.
And it still didn't work.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that's interesting. I follow a lot of weight classes, obviously, but 65 kind of is one I follow a lot because that's one Billy's in. Yep. And so they wrestled. They've got the number 3 guy in the country at 65. They wrestled him Friday night against Minot. Okay. They wrestled another guy on Saturday who I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's their second, third, fourth, or fifth guy. But they wrestled in a tournament on Saturday.
They go to St. John's?
They went to St. John's on Saturday, and they had 4 guys wrestling 165 on Saturday, and they had 2 that were in North Dakota. So that's crazy. I mean, that's it, and they're good. They're all. I mean, there's a lot of them that are great.
Now, just to break just a second, did you look at the St. John's results?
I did.
How did Berwick do?
Kyle went 1-2. He lost in the first round, which would have been like the quarterfinals probably because it wasn't a huge bracket. Lost to a kid from St. John's. probably ranked second or third or fourth in the country.
Okay.
He's like 15-1. He lost to him, and then the way that tournament works is if you lose in the quarterfinals, the best you can take is fifth. They don't have wrestlebacks all the way to third, just because they run out of matches, I suppose, a lot of times. And then he won 2 matches in a row to take fifth.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously I'm sure Kyle's not excited about losing a match, but he was there to compete.
Tough draw.
Yeah, I mean and he's still going to want to win that match. Obviously, that's a.
Did you see a score of it, or do you remember?
I did, but I don't remember what it was. I think 4-2, 6-2, something like that.
Okay, so he was in it at least.
Yep. No, I think that's what it was.
Okay.
So that was. I didn't look in the other tournament that went on in North Dakota was the Dickinson tournament, the Tyler Plummer tournament, and I never looked at it. I know Northern sent a few guys there. I think they had a couple of champs. I did talk to someone that had looked at the brackets and said that the numbers were kind of down, but so that was happened to happen there. So, but go back
to that 65 for a second. Does your son see the kid from Kearney or from Colorado or?
No, we thought we would have seen we should have seen the Kearney kid's really, really good. And we would never see them. I mean, they wrestled in a
surprisingly, they're not. Kearney, Nebraska isn't that far away.
No, well, they wrestled in Kearney this weekend. But they did not wrestle Kearney. They wrestled Western Colorado, Fort Hays State, and New Mexico Highlands. Northern did.
Okay.
The team went 2-1. They lost a really close duel to Western Colorado, and that is like a 1-match loss, right? They win one. The one they lost by 3, I think, and so that was a good duel. They kind of, I think they won 9 out of 10 matches against New Mexico Highlands, and they beat Fort Hays State pretty good. Might have been 7-3 duel wise, and a couple really good performances. So that was a pretty good weekend for Northern as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm.
They come to Minot next Friday, wrestle a duel at Minot State.
Okay.
Friday night. So kind of a makeshift lineup still. For a little while.
The big news was that it's the first time Minot State has reached the top 25 in the rankings. And so I did see a little thing on Facebook on that. And so, you can make the 25 and they got 2 ranked wrestlers. So
well, yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. They're ranked at 25 in heavyweight, right?
Right.
I actually had, that duel Friday night, Jordan Will wrestled, I think he's ranked 8th, and the St. Cloud guys ranked 9th, and they wrestled Friday night. St. Cloud won. But it was a good. That's I think part of that issue. When you're in a part of a program like St. Cloud is, and things get rolling. You get a heavyweight out there, and you don't want to be the only guy that loses. And I've seen them have that happen. Where they a few years ago, I've seen that happen, and they were miserable. Like last year, the regional tournament, they qualify. It's really hard to qualify for the national tournament out of our region. You got to place in the top 3, and it's the toughest region in the country.
Yep.
And they did not qualify at heavyweight last year, and I think the guy walked home. No, maybe not. They probably let him take the bus, but
he felt like walking home, probably.
Yeah, no, so I think that's kind of what happened. And Will didn't wrestle a bad match. And that is a pretty good athlete that he's wrestling there too. So they're 25-pounder.
Well, how are they going to match up against Northern then? Because Northern got ranked 2. They got, what are they, 22nd, 23rd?
Something like that. We dropped a little bit with a couple losses against Southwest Minnesota State.
Right.
And they dropped down a little bit. They'll match up pretty good. We'll be Minot will be favored at 25, and so they've got we've got a South Dakota, we got a Rep City kid there. Landon Fisher's been manning that spot, but he's going to be a pretty tall task against Minot. And then at 33, I think we're favored. Dane Morton against Oscar Nellis. At 41, we'll be favored. Kenny Jones has really, really been looking good. He's kind of getting settled into the weight class and been pretty tough. 49 will be favored. Northern will be favored. Caden Moore is ranked maybe 10th or right in there.
Right.
He lost a match this weekend.
He was a top 12 guy. I know quite a bit.
Yeah, he lost a match this weekend against Western Colorado. He shouldn't have lost. He gave up a takedown right at the end of the match to lose, and that was kind of a tough one to see. But he's he'll bounce back good. He has a pretty short memory. 57, it'll be Zach Berry for them. I don't know who it'll be for Northern. I think Northern will have a little bit of shakeup at 57 and 65. We're probably. I think we probably win one of those and lose one of those, depending on who we put in there. I don't know for sure. Billy won't be back yet. And so he's kind of shooting for the Dickinson duel. I hope that he can be back by then. We've got a pretty good 57 pounder that's been up wrestling 65 since Billy has been out. I assume that's what they'll do again this week. Minot has a pretty good 65 pounder, Nathan Baca. So that actually could be a pretty interesting match. This James Burks is ranked, I don't know, he's ranked 6th or 7th or something at 57. But he's had wins over some pretty tough guys that are ranked nationally at different weight classes. It's kind of wild the way it works, but so that would be a 57. I don't know who. I think we actually are probably, depending on who Minot puts out at 74. I think we're in pretty good shape there. They had one guy on Friday night, one guy Saturday. That'll be probably a toss-up match. 84 will be a really good match. I think Minot's got a new guy that transferred in from California. We've got a Marcus Placade who's I believe he's ranked. He's been ranked earlier. There's there's about 3 different ranking services out there, but he's right in there in the top 10 guys in the country at that weight. 97, we're definitely favored there, and heavyweight, Minot's favored. So I think I didn't count them up. Maybe it's 6-4. Pick them, I guess. But
it'd be okay duel then.
Should be a pretty good duel. That's Friday night, so that'll be fun. That'll be fun to see. What else happened this weekend? Moorhead had a duel against Upper Iowa. Upper Iowa was really tough, and that was a tough duel for.
They took a little beating, yeah.
Yeah, for Moorhead. And that's not, that's nothing. I mean, Upper Iowa stuff. And it was in Iowa. It's a tough place to wrestle. Fayette's, they got a lot of rabid fans, and they want to kill you, and they did forfeit at 33. Minot did, but they got pinned at 25, forfeited at 33, pinned at 41. It kind of got out of hand. And even 33, they Moorhead forfeited, but it's one of the top kids in the country, so they probably are in tough shape there anyway. But that was pretty tough to watch. I did watch it. I feel, it's got to be. Chris Nelson is a really good coach, and I'm sure he's, days like that are tough on him. That's a guy that's a tough competitor, and so I, he'll challenge those guys to get better in the room, and the next time out they'll probably be pretty good.
Yeah, that program's really advanced. For several years they've been good, but they're really coming on. I've been impressed with what Chris has done. Yeah.
No, he's another Lisbon product. So,
so true.
So that is that's at Augustana. I did watch them wrestle somebody on Friday night. They want to do Southwest Minnesota State maybe. So they're kind of starting to roll a little bit. Augustana's looking pretty good. Kind of the top half of that NSIC is St. Cloud is just far and above. Mankato, I guess I didn't talk about them at all. Mankato wrestled at Mary on Friday night.
Right.
And they beat Mary, and then they wrestled at Minot on Saturday. Minot had a pretty good win at 165, I thought, against Mankato. Nathan Baca had a good win over a guy that's been ranked all year, but has recently dropped out of the rankings, Logan Salto. He's a national qualifier last year. And I think actually Baca might have beat him last year too, but I watched that match. I think last year Baca might have got a throw and put him on his back and pinned him. This year he was a little bit more controlled and wrestled pretty good against them. So that was interesting. They 25 they wrestled really good again. Minot won that match, and Jordan Will did win in heavyweight. So they look, they've got some really good guys in there in that room, and they battle every match. No one's going out and laying down, and so it'll be fun to see how it goes this weekend.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of good wrestling out there.
There is. Hey, one great thing that happened, Division II and Division III NCAA approved women's wrestling as an emerging sport. So I think what that means, and I'd love to get Terry back on again to get some answers, but I think that kind of means that now they have the ability, those Division II and Division III schools have the go-ahead to start sponsoring women's programs and offer scholarships and do all the stuff that needs to be. And I think the goal probably kind of is to get 50 programs in each one of those divisions over the
goes to the next level where I know they can start offering scholarships. That's one of the biggest things,
right? And
recruiting levels different.
Yeah, and so I think that's huge. I think if we can get some of these programs and I'm going to throw a couple out there that used to have wrestling that don't anymore. But what an opportunity for them to bring in the sport back, like University of Minnesota Duluth, NSIC school. They have a club team, and if they can get a women's program in there too, if the money's around, and I don't know that it is, but that would be a great spot for them, right? Mm-hmm. I think obviously St. Cloud has had a little bit of money problems, but if they could raise some money on the wrestling side, they could what that does is it not only promotes the sport of women's wrestling, but it also solidifies the men's programs in those schools.
Right. Well, they drop football, they should have lots of money.
Well, you would think so. Yeah.
Now,
you would think so. Yeah. So I'm hoping, and I spend a lot on hockey, but I'm hoping. Well, they probably make money. Hockey probably makes money in St. Cloud State. But I'm hoping that's the kind of stuff we'll see. There's one Division III program, Augsburg in Minneapolis here that has a women's program that they started this year, and I'm hoping we get to see more. Concordia, not St. John's, but some of these other Wartburg in Iowa, some of those schools that I'm hoping we'll start seeing and build those programs. So that's a great thing to have happen.
I don't think it'd be far away or far-fetched to see somewhere like a Minot. Right. A Mary. Guess what? If you had 3 women's teams in the state of North Dakota, it would be phenomenal at the college level. And they would be not far from one another. Right. It wouldn't take that much to keep the teams all kind of working on the same page so that they could get duels and travel together and be kind of halfway comrades, but yet have the, how could you say, the rivalries and everything else.
Yep.
And they're small enough schools that I would think that it wouldn't be that expensive.
Well, no, they're not. And the one thing about these schools, like a Minot or a Northern State, right. These are enrollment driven schools. So you bring in 25 or 12, 15 or whatever the number is. I would hope it would be 25, right? Women athletes. those are women athletes that are paying tuition. You got scholarships that fall into play there, but that drives enrollment, and that's what makes administrators stand up and say, "Yeah, hey, this makes sense. This is a way that I can bring more women into my school and get more recognition out there also at the same time, and give another opportunity." So I think that in my mind, I think you hit it right on the head.
Oh wait, I think if we get the right people to push, we'll see a few more in this region.
Yeah, no, I sure hope so. I think the places we'd like to see it.
West Fargo had 2 girls on their varsity this weekend at 6 and at 13. Yeah. And Williston had probably 3-4 sitting there wrestling. Grand Forks had several wrestlers there. I don't doubt on the Sunday after the state wrestling tournament, if I need to promote it right now, they are having an official state wrestling tournament for the girls the day after the state wrestling tournament on that Sunday. I believe it's at Fargo Davies. I'll double check, and I'll get that information out there for people too. And I'll talk
that'd be great.
I'll talk to a couple of those coaches. I will get on Grand Forks' wrestling coach. He's a great friend of mine too. I haven't had him on yet this year, and he could talk about how their girls program is going. I know being the first official team, they called it in the state. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And before you know it, North Dakota will sanction girls wrestling. If Montana just did it, they just turned theirs and said they will sanction theirs. I think it's on the right path, and it's amazing that, one of your best friends could be heading it for the whole nation. A good friend of yours, Terry Steiner, and we're gonna have to get him back on again. I definitely agree.
Yep. No, I think that's a great idea. And we start talking about women's wrestling and how it grows, but I think that this year that the team that Terry will be taking to Japan to Tokyo for the Olympic team could be an all-timer. They will very likely have a world or Olympic champ or silver medalist at every weight. Returning.
Right.
And so when they get there, that's going to be a team that's going to be phenomenal. And I actually think it'd be kind of fun to get one of those gals on the team, or that has a chance at, on the broadcast.
I think if I talk to Terry soon enough, he could help and get.
I bet. And there's a couple that I can reach out to too. I think that there's a couple out there that are this is I wouldn't know. It's a little bit of a dead time, for them, because they're kind of in between their last trip. I should
call Jamestown's coach too.
Oh, absolutely.
He's on the Olympic ladder, and he's going to be in the trials, or would be Olympic ladder wise. But I think he'd have some insight of what's happening.
Yep. No, it'll be so I think that's a great thing. I think it's been a long time coming, and that was Division 2 and 3. Division 1 will be voting on it here in a couple months. So
right.
So the NCAA is on board. Obviously, that runs a lot of stuff.
Well,
so
here's what's interesting. I think they're afraid to go D1 with the women. I think they're going to keep it D2, D3 for a little bit.
It'll be interesting. The one thing that I will say though is that Tom Brand said that if the NCAA approves it as emerging sport status, we will have a women's program.
That is so. It's huge.
Yeah. So if Tom Brand's and actually they've got about maybe 5 or 6 women on their club team. I mean, on their on the Hawkeye Wrestling Club.
Right.
So and they are tough. They're good. I mean, they've got good athletes that they put in there. So they are supportive. I think John Smith is one of the biggest supporters in the country. So I would think every Big Ten team would have a women's team fairly quickly.
Okay.
And then because I think Nebraska would be a fan. I think Iowa, I think Ohio State, Penn State.
I still think you're pushing it a little bit fast, because I still think it hasn't developed enough countrywide to start filling all these teams with women.
Oh, you're right.
But
yeah, well, there's a lot in California.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. I that's probably not.
And so I'm afraid that you'd start a program and then they'd probably shut them down a little bit and it would look bad. See this uptrend and then down because you can't fill the teams and get enough in the room.
Yeah, but
it's surging also.
I think Terry would have maybe said it that day, but it's the fastest growing high school sport in the country.
Yeah,
girls wrestling, women's wrestling. So I think that there's a chance. It'd be hard. It's hard for me to fathom that you could have 50 D2 teams, 50 D3 teams, and 25 D1 teams,
right,
in 5 or 10 years. But I think I could. It might be possible.
Well, I'm gonna have to convince my wife to have some girls here. No,
good luck. Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, am I saying that I've had this conversation before, and there's a lot. But if wrestling is as good for boys and men as I think it is, why would it not be that good for girls?
I agree.
I think it teaches the same lessons, and not now. Where we run into problems, obviously, in Class B towns in North Dakota, is we just short of kids. So they're taking every kid and putting them on the girls' basketball team.
Right.
But that's not always the case. But I do think there's room, and maybe it's a one-class sport in North Dakota, and that's awesome.
Too packed with winter sports. Winter sports is a huge season. You got hockey. You're battling with swimming. You're battling with basketball, all at the same time, and
yeah.
And that's talking girls hockey, boys hockey,
right? Yeah,
boys and girls. So it's a little bit different in the spring. You are not quite competing quite the same. I know you got soccer and you've got that's taking quite a bit, but that's not Class B.
No.
It's track. Track is your battle in Class B, and so there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is. We're not going to solve that problem tonight, but I just think it's an awesome start, and I do think. I think that I'm excited to see where it goes.
Oh yeah, both of us. One more thing. I know we're getting almost an hour and a half, and I just looked at the time. I looked at it and I saw 56 minutes last time I looked.
It's just a number.
Anything happening international before we kind of cut this loose, and we'll talk a lot again on Wednesday. Just 2 nights.
Okay. Well, we didn't talk much about this, but a couple weeks ago, there was the UWW, the United World Wrestling Association. They have what they call rankings tournaments, and those are the tournaments that they use to seed the world and the Olympic tournaments. And on Olympic year, those start to get really, really tough.
Right.
So they had one here a couple weeks ago in Italy, and I'd have to now my memory is gonna. But here's what I can tell you.
A month ago, last time we talked about it was a month ago.
Yeah, so at 125 or at 57 kilograms, which is 125 pounds, it was Thomas Gilman and Joe Colon wrestled each other in the finals, and Gilman won a really close match.
So now, how much international is this? Is this dominated by the United States, or are you seeing Iran? You're seeing all the
Iranians, Russians, Europeans, Japanese.
Sure.
Yep. No, everybody's there. I mean, because this is how you get seeded for the Olympics.
Okay.
This is the last rankings tournament. So we dominated at 57 kilograms. We had 2 in the finals and one bronze medalist. Okay. So Dayton Fix lost to a really close match to Thomas Gilman, and then Gilman beat Joe Colon. So Joe Colon and Thomas Gilman both grew up in Iowa, and so then they flew to Italy to wrestle each other. It makes a world of sense. But Joe Colon actually is training in Fresno with Troy. So that was at 57 kilograms, 65 kilograms. Jordan Oliver made the finals, and he wrestled Bajrang from India in the finals and lost a really close match, good match. Bajrang had beat Yanni. No. Yanni lost. He beat McKenna, Joey McKenna from Ohio State in the semis. So we had, I think, 3. Oh, and Zane Rutherford also. Bajrang beat Zane Rutherford also. Okay. So we had silver medalists and 2 bronze medalists at 65 kilograms. We are really getting, so that's a weight class that we have not medaled at the world or Olympic level since 2005.
Ooh, okay.
The current world team coach is Bill Zanuck. He was the last one to medal at that weight, which was he was a world champion in 2005. Right. So that tells you, and that's not, I mean, it's not like we've had bad guys here. We've had Brent Metcalf, we've had Jordan Oliver, we've had Tejan Ware, we've had Jared Freer. I mean, we took 5th at the Olympics in 2016 in Rio with Frank Molinaro. But yeah, I mean, guys like Zane Rutherford, Logan Stieber, none of them have been able to medal at that weight since 2005.
Jeez, okay.
It's crazy. So hopefully this is the year that kind of breaks through, and there is a lot of really good guys there. I think the 3 that are the top are Jordan Oliver, Yanni Diakamahalis, and Zane Rutherford. I think those are the top 3. So that's 65, 74 kilograms. Kyle Dake made his trek down to 74 kilograms from 79. He smashed the world. He tech-balled the guy in the finals in the first period, 11-0.
They said he looked unbelievable. That was the one that
I think if you're anybody in the world except for Jordan Burroughs, you just think, man, that Kyle Dake is really trouble. He is. And then Jordan Burroughs is going to have. I mean, Kyle Dake still has to beat Jordan Burroughs to make the
Olympic team. Right? Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've picked against Jordan Burroughs before, and I've probably told myself I'll never do it again. But I watch Kyle Dake wrestle, and it just makes me shake my head. Right. He's really something special, and so that's good. 86 kilograms. We had 2 guys in the finals. Zahid Valencia and and Derringer wrestled in the finals. Zahid handled them pretty good. Zahid looks good. We did and then at 97 kilograms, we had 2 guys 2 basically in the tournament. I think that way it would be Bo Nickel and Kyle Snyder. They both lost to an Iranian that looks otherworldly. He was ahead of Kyle Snyder 8-0 when he pinned him. Kyle Snyder is a 2-time world champion, 1-time Olympic champion, couple time silver medalist, and this guy just really and he tech-falled Bo Nickel also. So Bo Nickel and Kyle Snyder were supposed to wrestle on the wrestlebacks or repechage, that they call it. And Bo Nickel medical forfeited. I don't know the story behind that. It was kind of one of those weird things that nobody wants to see, but I think that who knows? Maybe he got beat up a little bit, or maybe something else happened. But so Kyle Snyder took a bronze medalist, but I'll be interested to see how that weight class shakes out. We don't know who's going to go there when it comes to the Olympic trial time. Mm-hmm. And we really did not send anybody at heavyweight. So there was talk of Gable Stevenson going. He did not go. But so we had a really good, and that was the men's side. Women had a great tournament too. I think we won at 50 kilograms. I think we were silver medalist at 55, if that's what that next weight class is. The women's weight classes, I don't remember off the top of my head as well. But we had 2 or 3 champions and a couple other medalists. Had a pretty good tournament. Tamira Mensah Stock is a current world champion. Ended up losing a match in the finals that I think that she would really like to get back. I think that was one that she was ahead 8-0 and lost 8-8. The criteria loss, and so that was we looked the United States. I'm going to say we because I just feel like I'm part of that team. No, yep. The United States men and women both looked really good there, and so that Greco team struggled still. Had I don't know, not maybe a couple placements, struggled. I think our two best guys in the Greco team right now are Kamal Bay at like 79 or 77 or whatever, 77 kilograms, and he did not place, and Adam Kuhn at heavyweight, he did not place. So when your best guys aren't placing, that doesn't lend well for the Greco program. But next thing coming up for the international circuit will be the Pan Am. Pan Ams are kind of weird because they have on the Olympic. They always have a Pan Am Championships, which are a qualifier for the weight for the country at the Olympic Games. So we need to send people to the Pan Am Championships, and then like a week later they have the Pan Am Championships or Games. Pan Am Games are the second one. And that's kind of, they have that only on the Olympic year, but those are both in Toronto in February or early March. So that's kind of the next thing up. We got to send a full team, full squads there trying to qualify. So that we can have a full team at the Olympics.
Okay. Well, good deal.
So that's it. Yeah. That's the exciting stuff. There's a lot of exciting stuff going to happen on that Olympic side. We talked about a lot of weight classes there where we were pretty good. And there's a lot of guys like Jordan Burroughs that wasn't there. David Taylor at 86 kilograms wasn't there. Jaden Cox, which we don't know where he's going to go. He falls in between. He could go to 97. He could go to 86.
That would mess things up at 86.
Mess things up at 97.
Yeah, 97 too.
I mean, and he may be the best wrestler in the world at any weight. And I can't imagine how he would want to go to 86, just because of the weight cut. Right. But he could win a world. He could win Olympic gold either place. But he at 86 he's got to wrestle. He's got to get that's David Taylor.
Right.
And at 97 it's Kyle Snyder. I think he maybe wins either one of those weights. And against transcendent type talents. So that'll be interesting. And he says he's not telling what way he's going until he gets on the scale.
Until he shows up.
So nobody knows. I mean, it's like the best kept secret in wrestling that nobody knows. He is now training out of Ohio State. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, when it comes, but he'll be in one of those two weight classes. And at 97, if he goes there, it'll be between him and Snyder. And I don't think anybody else really touches either one of those two. Probably the next closest one is NDSU's own.
I know too.
Yeah. What am I thinking here? I don't know why I can't think of it here off the top of my head, but I'm getting tired, I guess. And, Hayden Zilmer.
Yep.
So that's, and then at 86, it's just, you got Daringer, you got Zahid Valencia, you got David Taylor. Those are, and Pat Downey, which was this year's national champ, or this year's world team member.
Yep.
So it's Nick Heflin.
There's been a lot of broken hearts come Olympics.
Have you been to the Olympic trials before?
I have not.
It's the most amazing event I've ever seen.
Okay. And
this year it's in Penn State, so I'm not going. But I went to it in 2016, and at 9:00 in the morning on a mat down in the corner of Carver Hawkeye Arena, there's two guys that won between the two of them 3 NCAA national championships wrestling in the second round of the tournament.
Right.
It's like, you got to be. I mean, every mat, it's like, oh my God, look at that guy. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, you walk. Wow, it's just like every other wrestling tournament. You know how you walk around the Rumble and you walk in and there's all these wrestlers walking by you. It's the same way, but it's Coleman Scott and Anthony, Tony Ramos and they're just
the best coaches around the nation are watching them.
And oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, but the wrestling is unbelievable. I can't wait to go to that one again. But I'm not going this year. It's in Penn State, but yeah, just.
I'll put that on my bucket list for sure. I have to do that.
When you got, especially if you can do it at Carver Hawkeye.
Oh yeah, that would even be better. Definitely.
Yeah, so. All right,
let's wrap this up. An hour and 40. That's awesome, guys. But whoever stuck with us, I see there's still some people watching. Great coming by. Promote the sport. Hey, there's some great tournaments. East-West this weekend. Aberdeen's got some great tournaments. I know that Belfouche has got their tournament in South Dakota. I know there's several out there. There's great duels this week. I know Bismarck High Century. There's several Class B. There's many, many great things out there happening both in North and South Dakota. Again, with wrestling, anytime possible, go out and support it before we know it. The season will be done. And so,
go watch some wrestling.
Definitely. Okay, guys, you guys have a great night. Thanks again.